Good afternoon, Veronica. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for being the first victim. For the audience, you don't know this, but we actually have a Slack channel. And in that Slack channel, there's something we call Things I've Learned. Now, you can see a slice of that on the screen at the moment. And the slice that I'm giving you is that Veronica has commented over the last, let's just say 2 or 3 months. And so in here, I'm going to start picking off different things and we can talk about it for a couple of minutes, just to get an expert's opinion. So the first one that I particularly like is this one here, which is you should never use words like promo or affiliate in your CNAMES in Marketo. They get blocked. Have you got anything more to say about that, V, or is that enough said?
There's this fundamental belief that you can pretty much choose anything as your CNAME, and I know a lot of Marketo consultants will walk in and go, it can be anything, just make it not too long. But the truth of the matter is that words like affiliate and promo and others of their kind in the marketing world, they mean something, and they are words that are easy pickings for ad blocking software, especially if you have one-off sort of landing pages or campaign pages, which is what Marketo landing pages are. It's not that you can choose anything, it's that you should choose something as innocuous as possible. I know a lot of people try to do clever CNAMEs, things like that. There's nothing wrong with that, but from a Marketo perspective, I don't particularly want them looking at the URL. I want them looking at the page. I know a lot of people have gotten to the stage where they're using one-letter CNAMEs. It's like F or A or E or R, or they're doing very, very short things like go and jump and stuff like that. But not that I meant to use those in combination. The main thing to think of is that promo.domain.com is one of those things that is regularly, and insert your domain here, is regularly picked up by spam blockers all over the world.
This one here was similarly good fun. And I know we've fallen foul a bit of this when we're doing some of our own events, because we have the Zoom connector in our own Marketo instance. So we're sort of drinking our own champagne here a bit. But tell me why you wouldn't want to just clone from previous programs with a Zoom integration in with Marketo.
As most Marketo users know, one of the things that we advocate very strongly is to not rebuild your event programs over and over again, that you should build them as program templates and enable all of your users and yourself, obviously, to set things up properly, and then you just clone it time after time after time. What in actuality ends up happening is that the first person clones from the program template, and then everybody else clones from the last event that was run. So there's two problems with this. One, you pick up every mistake that everyone before you has done, and it accumulates over time. And you may or may not even know that those mistakes exist. And B, when you are doing something like using the Zoom connector is actually a little bit fiddly in the Marketo universe. Things like, if you change the date of your Zoom webinar, for instance, in Zoom, you may as well throw your Marketo program away if they're already connected, because the actual thing you're doing in Zoom is deleting the first webinar and starting a new one. So it doesn't look like that in the Zoom interface, but it's what's actually happening under the covers. And all you'll get through in that instance is registration error, because Zoom thinks that webinar doesn't exist anymore. If you clone a Zoom webinar in Marketo, so an event program that has previously been hooked up with Zoom, it will not clone the event partner. That's not what it does. It doesn't actually clone from the original webinar. But in the background, something is remaining, something is staying. We can't quite figure out what it is, but I know from the number of errors that I've gotten in re-hooking up webinars with newly cloned event programs, that the times that you are going to get Zoom errors multiply by a factor of 10 if you are cloning from a program that previously had a connector hooked up to it, even though when it clones, it gets rid of it. There must be something in that cloning process that's happening for Marketo. And, I don't want to use the word bug, but there's something happening in the background there that is a nuance, one might say, that is not executing as smoothly as you would like. And it does seem to maintain some kind of ghost connectivity to an old Zoom webinar. So there are some times when you will find that you'll get random Zoom errors. You've got no clue. And the only thing that's happened is that you have cloned it from one that has a connector already. So my big piece of advice there, clone from your program template for both of those reasons. One, you don't pick up the ghosts of webinars past, and B, you don't pick up the ghosts of mistakes past in your current program, both of which will happen if you keep cloning from the last one.
Now there's some words you can expect to arrive on some form of blog in the future. Somewhere around Christmas time, I suspect, with one of the memes.
Of webinars past.
That's right. Yeah. I can see the marketing slogan right now. Okay, one final one. Is this one up here. So we don't have a huge number of clients, I suspect, who would be that interested in the API, but those that are interested in the API are going to want to know about the API stuff. So right here, I suspect this was in the May release. Marketo made a bit of a change to one of their user permissions to bypass these CRM checks. What does that mean, and why is that important, V?
Up until now in Marketo world, if you have what's called a native connector, you are using Marketo software to hook into Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce. That native connector makes a whole bunch of changes to the underside and the underbelly of Marketo, and it forces you into certain practices that you might not necessarily like. One of those practices was that if you have a native connector to a CRM system, that certain objects in Marketo become locked because they are used solely by your native connector. And two of those objects were the account object and the opportunity object. The new improvements that we're starting to see come out from the API are beginning to suggest that Marketo is moving past those kinds of limitations within the platform. And this new bypass CRM checks API user permission didn't appear in any of the release notes, just kind of popped up, and random nerds like myself who go through and update permission spreadsheets a lot just noticed that there was a new permission. I did a little bit of digging around, and the advice that I got back was that there are some new changes coming into Marketo that will allow you to write to that opportunity object, even if it is already in play with a native connector. So that opens up a lot of different avenues, the biggest of which being if you want to be plugged into a data warehouse or an e-commerce platform. Something in the past we've had to build separate transaction objects to handle e-commerce transactions coming in because it couldn't go into the opportunity object because that was being fed from elsewhere. Being able to send signals from multiple directions into those lockdown objects could open up pathways that were previously locked.